Hi guys, welcome to our little Cabbage Patch sewing pattern tutorial. So there's a couple different ways that we can go about making this journal. I'm going to show you the quickest, the easiest, and the simplest first, and what I plan to do with it. So inside your envelopes, I sent you each two, so you can do both of these versions if you like, or do two of the same. I don't really care, whatever you want to do. But inside you're going to find the pattern instructions, and then you might also find some scraps of pattern paper. You might find them in a big whole uncut sheet, or you may find them in envelopes that are pre-cut. I am reserving these to, I'm likely going to sew some tag clusters with them or embellish pages with them, but I'm not going to use them in the actual construction of the journal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set these to the side. So along with my envelope and my pattern instructions, I have also selected a piece of cardstock. This could be any sort of cardstock that you like. It is simply to give your pattern envelope a little weight and heft to it. So mine is double-sided. It's a 12 by 12 sheet. It's because that's what I had on hand. So I'm going to use this patterned side because, first of all, I think it's adorable. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to open up this envelope along the side and the bottom here, and I'm going to cut off this flap. I don't mind cutting things by hand. In fact, this step you will have to likely use scissors. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just opening up this folder, or envelope, I should say. So you're just opening this up. And as you can see, now it will open up like a book. You will see that there is some unevenness here. So you can either take this to your paper cutter, if you have a guillotine cutter or a rolling cutter, whatever you find easiest, or if you want to hand cut, go ahead and do that now. Okay, I'm back with this and it's a little bit more straightened up. I do want to caution you on a couple areas. So the back of the envelope is likely going to be a bit lower than the front, and you're also going to have this little section right here. Be careful when you're trimming that you're not going off of that lowest level line, because you might end up cutting off some of your Cabbage Patch logo. I wanted to keep that intact. I didn't want that disturbed, so that's something to keep in mind. So what I like to do is I will just go in, and if it needs just trimmed a little bit, I will do that. It's really not that big of a deal. If you're a perfectionist, it might be a big deal. For me, it doesn't really bother me. And then I will hand trim some of this that I missed in my cutter. So I'm backing this. I want the bright and colorful pattern to show. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere this pattern envelope to my cardstock. Super simple. I'm choosing to just use a glue stick to do this, because we are going to be laminating these. So I really need it to just hold in place while it's being laminated. And I feel like if I use a liquid glue, it might bubble the old paper of the envelope. So I kind of over glue everything, but is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to line this up to a corner, because then I really don't have to trim that. And I'm just going to lay this down. if I need to go in and do a little more, I will, to keep those corners down. I'm gonna go trim this again. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've trimmed the excess of the cardstock. And so now what I'm going to do before I run this through the laminator is I'm just going to go ahead and find that natural fold where it lined up on the envelope. And I'm just gonna give it a light crease like that. And I'm gonna have to take it back and trim it again. I don't really measure things, and to be honest, when you're working with vintage things like this envelope or things like that, you may need to cut around things. So just be flexible. Just be flexible with the plan. All right, so I'm gonna take this back and I'm just gonna trim this little edge. Okay, so I trimmed that little edge off. This is going to be the inside cover, and that is the back. And you can see, since I used double-sided cardstock, there's a little bit of the pattern showing in that little area that I didn't want to cut. That was a little bit lower than this area. And I think that's really cute, and I like that. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna run this through our laminator. I did go ahead and include a 3mm laminating sheet in your kit. If you wanted to use a thicker laminate, that would be fine. Just be aware that sometimes when the laminate is a little thicker, it becomes a little bit difficult to crease when you're doing these simple fold one signature situations. So, okay, so I'm gonna flatten this line back out as best I can. And I'm going to go ahead, easy for me to say, I'm gonna go ahead and open up this laminate sheet here. And I'm going to center it as best I can, because if I center it good enough in this step, there will be no trimming needed. So I think this looks good. I'm just trying to center it really evenly. I should have, yeah, that should be great. I just want to avoid having to trim the top and the bottom. So I don't like cutting through or trying to like even things out later on. So just take a minute and make sure that you're doing that properly in this step right now. So now I have my little sandwich here, and I'm just gonna pass it through my cheapo laminator from Staples. I purchased my laminating sheets on Amazon. You can find them in any office supply store. I've seen them at Sam's Club. I feel like Amazon has the better value on them because you can get like a really large pack, like 100 pieces, and then they last me a very long time. I'm actually going to use these to embellish pages, I think. They have some really great graphics. I love this. Like some of them, granted, some of them are a little bit better than others. And like this sheet doesn't really have any dolls or anything on it, but they're really cute. Okay, so this is passed through my laminator and it looks really good. It doesn't look like I need to pass it through again. There are times where I can get impatient and I have to pass it through a second time if it's not warmed up or hot enough. But yeah, so we are looking great, and we can see this little fold here, and I'm just going to work that over. Like I said, this is 3mm lamination, so it's not crazy that you shouldn't be able to work it over. And that's really as simple as that. There's my cover. Boom. It is almost complete. In your kit, you're also going to have a blank notebook that's similar to this guy. So you have some choices right now. I would suggest, If you plan on embellishing this with any of the ephemera that was sent in your kit, or any of your magazine pages that you might want to collage in here, you can go ahead and do that now. If you're going to sew physically, sew decorative elements, now may be a great time to do that. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm just gonna go ahead and secure this in my cover, and I'm gonna work on it later. And the way that we're doing this is with elastic, so this can always be removed. So it's really not that big of a deal. So set this to the side. Well, actually don't set it to the side. So you're gonna see how this is gonna set in here. Mine actually is poking out a little bit. I think my notebook is slightly bigger than what you guys are receiving. So I guess that's to be expected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew like a fabric ruffle on the outside of this edge, or glue. You could glue it or staple it or whatever you want. But I'm going to do a fabric ruffle on the outside of this, this cover. So that'll cover that up anyway. I have included 2 pieces of elastic in your kit as well. So at this stage, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to poke some holes. I have a hole punch that has a small hole. That's what I'm going to use. If you don't have one of those, you can use an owl and poke your hole for your elastic to go through. Do not put your holes like far in. Make sure you are close enough to the edge on this, okay? I'm going to say, let me grab a ruler. I'm going to say to go ahead and from the laminate edge, about a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to come down like a little bit here. And you can mark that if you want, or you can just go ahead and be like me and just go at it and poke a hole. So I go from the laminate edge about a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna go a little bit further down. My pen doesn't really work, but I can like make an indentation, which is great. Works just as well. And like I said, you can use an owl, or this hole punch is what I'm using. It's not far in, so you don't need anything special. You don't need to use your crocodile. And I am doing it right along that fold. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my elastic and I'm going to feed that through. Really simple. Oops, sorry about that. And I'm just going to tie it. If you have fun color elastic that you'd like to use, that would be really pretty. All right, so then this notebook that came, I'm just opening up to the center and I'm just sliding it in here. And there she is. So you're pretty much just embellishing at this point. So one thing that I like to do with books like this that are a single fold is I include an enclosure. This is, or not an enclosure, a closure. I install a closure of some kind. So mine are very simple. I just poke another hole here and thread some decorative ribbon or yarn through. I know some of you have grommet setters that you could set a grommet right here, which would be really pretty. I'm just going to do a really simple hole. And I'm just going to line that up on both sides so I know I'm even on both sides. So I actually will measure this now. So I'm at about the 4.5 mark is where I want to make that hole. And I'm going to do so in a little bit. And the same here on this end, 4.5 is where I want to make that hole. And I'll just do it right there. And boom, boom, do they line up? I take it kind of like that. Yep. And this one I do want it to be a little further in. Not anything crazy, but just like that. And just like that. I have this vintage yarn that I'm going to go ahead and use. This can be a little bit of a pain in the rear end because it does fray. It like kind of comes apart. If you wanted to and you don't have a grommet setter, or you didn't want to use a grommet setter and you're worried about these holes, you could use reinforcement labels. I just don't. Sometimes even decorative purposes, they're kind of cute. I'm just not going to bother, simply because this is laminate and this is not like I don't anticipate this getting so thick that I'll need it. Watch me say that now and then it will, but I can always change that later. That's kind of the nice thing about this journal is nothing is really set in stone. When this fills up and you want to get a refill for it and still use the cover, you can. I love that about these style of journals. I first saw a journal that was made this way from Shelly McDaniel. She made one like with a mini composition notebook and it was really cute. I purchased it actually and it's Christmas themed and it's beautiful. So I go ahead and I tie a knot, and because this hole is so small, that's not going to go through. That's not going to go anywhere. And then I'm also going to tie a knot on this side. Just as close to the cover as possible. And this is very long, so I don't need, and then I'm also going to tie a knot here. So tie all the knots. You can also like light this. Actually, I'm going to suggest not to do that with this material because I've messed some things up like that and almost burnt my house down. Because these fibers are so thin, they catch, and I think they're synthetic, so I don't know. It just made me uncomfortable. Sometimes a little bit of glue on the edge helps. I just cut it down close enough. I'm just doing the same thing on this side. Really self-explanatory, really simple. There we go. So we have this and it's ready. It's ready to embellish whenever you are ready to do that. So you can do this step, as you can see, really quickly and then embellish it slowly over the course of time. If this isn't something you're looking to get into right away, it's really easy to get this going and then to slowly embellish it.